Hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name is Visahl Samson and I'm doing my MSc in Engineering Management at Coventry University and PSP Academy. And this presentation is for the unit Sustainability and Engineering. And I have chosen sustainability in the technology sector, where focusing on the e-waste challenge. And before we dive in, I want to give a brief background about why I chose the technology sector. So I'm basically from tech sector. I work in a tech company focusing on construction payment transparency application, and I also do volunteering project on Tech for Good. And I did multiple projects across various technology domains, including blockchain, AI, IoT, and so on. So this gave me a very good understanding about the requirements need to deliver a complete final project, and as well as the end-to-end project or product lifecycle. So that is the reason why I chose technology. So we first start with the digital age and its footprint right now. So from last few years, there's an extraordinary growth in the global technology sector, and there was a transformation technologies such as blockchain, generative AI, and so on. So these technologies transform how we live, work, and communicate. At the same time, it also increased the device ownerships and caused a surge in global electronic consumption. However, this transformation comes with its own consequences, where there is a need for extensive resource extraction in order to produce these kind of tech related devices, or in order to offer a tech related services. And this also require high energy consumption during the manufacturing, and it generate a huge amount of waste once the product reaches its life cycle. So in order to uh, consider this, United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, especially SDG 12, address this responsible consumption and production, as well as SDG 13, climate action, focusing on manufacturing things, which is applies to the manufacturing of new technology or the product. So when it comes to the e-waste, the definition of e-waste vary on different perspective, but as per the United Nations Environment Program, e-waste refer to all discarded electrical and electronic equipment, EEE, and its parts that have been discarded by owners as a waste. This include any product with the plug or battery that has reached the end of its useful life. So as for the global e-waste monitor report, which is also managed by United Nations, 62 million tons of e-waste generated in 2022, and this amount is expected to reach 82 million by the year 2030. At the same time, out of the 62 million, only 22.3% is formally recycled, collected, and done. So this shows how huge this e-waste is a quantity, and at the same time, the risk of its increased e-waste in the future or in the next generation. So now in the right hand side, what you are seeing is a figure of e-waste from Gen AI alone. So only generative AI technology released estimated of 2600 tons in 2023 as a e-waste, which expected to grow as 2.5 million tons by 2030, only from generative AI technology, and it is 1000-fold increase. So this shows how uh, resource consumption or economical or sustainable impact that e-waste is causing through the world. So now it comes to the ecological dimension. It causes so much of environmental burden. For example, it starts with the pollution and toxic waste. So when improper waste disposals, which releases lead, mercury, and other toxic, contaminate soil, air, and water. And not all the countries has formal recycling method. So people who use informal recycling, such as open burning or using acids to destroy the thing, increases the pollution furthermore. And there is a huge resource depletion from for the e-waste. For example, in order to produce a proper chip or any technology thing, there is a huge demand for virgin materials such as rare earth material or called precise metals. So what actually happening is this cycle creates a huge high demand for the mining, which subsequently leads to environmental degradation, habitat destruction, and produce more carbon emission. So e-waste recycling required at this time in order to reduce the dependence on harmful mining practices. So that's why recycle, reduce, and reuse will be a uh, requirement in order to avoid the ecological dimensions. And when it comes to economic dimension, it actually quite complicated in uh, two ways. One, it has challenges. At the same time, it also provide opportunities. When it comes to challenges, as you can see from the graph here, China has more reserves on the mining things comparing with any other countries, which causes geopolitical tensions when it comes to supply chain disruptions and price volatility. So far 89 plus billion dollars of embedded e-waste is annually produces unrecoverable reserved losses. So this there is a huge material losses also happening due to non-recyclable things. So since only certain amount is going to recycle, the rest of the e-waste is just going as a landfill or unrecovered losses. At the same time, this also opens a new innovation opportunity in the area of advanced recycling technologies and new green tech industries. And these opportunities provide a country to reduce their import dependencies through domestic material recovery. For an example, one of the use cases from Decycle, which is a company in UK, which came up with a new deep aquatic solvent chemistry in order to recover 99% of valuable metals from the e-waste with low energy. This significantly reduces the UK's dependencies on other countries in order to ensure the electronics and clean energy. So when it comes to social dimension, at first it create two things: equity and responsibility. So what happening in informal recycling in developing country is it creates a digital inequality. For example, in 2022, 5.1 million kilogram of e-waste crossed borders and ended up in low and middle income countries, where these countries doesn't have a proper or safe e-waste disposal methods. So the workers, including the children and women, manually dismantle the electronics without any protection, which exposes them to toxic and health risks, and which ultimately leads to DNA damage and multiple hormone changes, and also affect their immune issues. So this is an social dimension of the e-waste, where it's creating so much of digital inequality. At the same time, we have to think about the consumer responsibility also, because as per the reports from United Nations, only 22% of the consumers retain their electronics for proper recycling. So this is a very nominal number, and the rest of the waste goes to unresolved or ends up somewhere in a low income country. So when it comes to stakeholder analysis, collaborative solutions are needed. For example, government, organizations such as companies, and communities. These are the three areas I chose. For example, for governments, they should have a key responsibilities or implementing extended producer responsibility schemes, and they establish the guidelines and all those things, enforce them, then monitor them. And for organization, they should focus more on the corporate and social responsibility and sustainable design and manufacturing practices, and introduce more take back recycling programs. And for communities, they should advocate more for the safer recycling practices. So for government example, I can quote Singapore's National Environmental Agency RSA Act, Resource Sustainability Act in 2019, which provides guidelines. Producers are responsible for recycling their product at the end of their life cycle, and they introduce a mandatory reporting, and the company should also have proper establishment or infrastructure in order to collect and e-waste recycle it. For corporate, I can quote the example of Apple's reuse and recycling program, and where they have the goals, and they literally use the robotics in order to provide proper recycling infrastructure and to avoid unwanted toxic release to human. And for the global movements, WHO has their own interest group to promote safe recycling practices. Now, when all the three things comes in, government regulations like EPR, which is a social and political action, mandate another area, which is corporate responsibility, which ultimately reduces environmental harm. For example, if I look into the Singapore's case study of the e-wasting, Once the program is implemented in 2021, as of 2025, within the 4 years, 33 tons is collected. And in 2025 alone, so far, 10,000 tons is collected, which is a quite significant amount and shows that this is a successful initiative. And in terms of the organizational level, the corporate recycling initiative, which is an economical action, led to reduced environmental pollution and also create formal, safer employment opportunities. In Apple, the program which I mentioned earlier, in 2024, they avoided 21.8 million metric tons of CO2 emission and used 24% recycled or renewable material and incorporated 99% recycled cobalt in battery, which significantly reduced and their dependence on natural resources, like they saved 53 billion liters of water. At the same time, consumer demand, which is a social behavior and economic activity, causing the ecological impact. So the consumer should be focusing more on the minimalist approach, which is a need right now. So now it comes to the recommendation for sustainable value creation across the spectrum. So it should be started with the government, which strengthen the extended producer responsibility and hold manufacturer accountable, and in what we have seen in NEA's initiative. Second, support formal recycling ecosystem. For example, once EPR is established by a government, companies should start invest in efficient recycling technology and infrastructure and transit informal workers to formal and safe jobs, and design modular and repair. For example, when it comes to technology products, companies should focus more on easy disassembly, upgrades and repairs related design rather than changing a device completely in order to repair it, kind of things. So this will also result in extended lifespan and reduced e-waste. And the company should also promote circular business model where they maximize resource use and keep materials in circulation. Ultimately, what we needed is consumer awareness and education, like what you are seeing in the map here, the poster here, which is from an NEA, and they organize the e-waste day every year to promote about benefits of e-waste, the benefits of recycling and avoid e-waste. And so this kind of awareness should be raised, and consumer awareness and education is the key in order to combat the e-waste problem we are looking into. So that's all from my end. Thanks.